All right, everyone. Other than Kamala Harris herself, I think that the biggest loser of this last presidential election was Allan Lichtman, actually. By the way, he has a little feud with Nate Silver, which is hilarious, and considers him a tyro, I guess, or something like that. I'm no huge fan of Nate Silver either, but I think there was a difference in accuracy, at least in this particular election. Lichtman has been wrong before, although the legacy media pretends that several of those elections never actually took place. And Lichtman can always go back, and he's doing that now, reanalyze his keys and say, well, the keys are sacrosanct. They're 100% accurate, which no system is. But I've got to look at the reasoning behind the allocation of the keys, so to speak, and figure out why the prediction was wrong. He's not entirely incorrect in his surmisings. I said long ago exactly why Lichtman's keys were not going to be reliable. He allowed his personal desires and subjective bias to influence where he allocated those keys. For example, supposedly, the short and long-term economy both benefited Kamala Harris. What I pointed out is that it does not matter. The economy's not doing well, to be clear. I'm not arguing that. But even let's say that it was doing okay. It doesn't matter. Public perception about the economy is what matters. When you say, well, GDP is up, everything's hunky-dory, unemployment is low, yes. But then there are people that are taking out second jobs. They're in their 50s or 60s, and they're washing dishes on the side in order to buy groceries. Their opinion regarding the economy, even if the macroeconomic situation looks perfectly fine, for them is not working. So you had that. For some reason, he also, I think on Key 13, he said, well, no, Trump is not really charismatic, so that one goes to Kamala. Didn't really make much sense, did it? I think that was one. Major foreign policy and military success, we had none. I think he gave that to Kamala. And then there was lack of a major scandal. I think he remained neutral on that one. Well, there have been multiple major scandals with the Biden administration. You look at the Twitter papers, you look at the Hunter Biden laptop and the resulting cover-up of that. So basically the keys themselves, the basic premise, if he had interpreted them if he had taken a step back and not injected his own subjective opinions, but looked at public sentiment, he would have correctly guessed the election. He would have had 8 keys for Donald Trump using his own methodology. What he did was he decided to hyper-optimistically tinker with his own numbers and let his own bias drag him down. And people do this a lot within predictions. They're like, well, I don't really like this polling result. And I looked at their methodology, and in a roundabout sort of way, I can demote them in my aggregate because I can effectively cherry pick the polls. Karl Rove had this problem. You'll remember Obama v. Romney. Do you remember when Karl Rove tried his famous unskewed polls and arrived at the conclusion that Mitt Romney should get Ohio during that election? Fox News, he was on there on live during the election, and he couldn't believe it when they called Ohio for Barack Obama. He literally stormed off stage. During the commercial break, he's like wandering around the hallways. He goes backstage and starts yelling at the people there that are, actually accumulating the numbers and calling the states. He's yelling at them, and it's like the anchors there couldn't really believe what they were seeing. That's because he allowed his own personal bias, his opinion, to affect the raw data. Lichtman did the same thing. Not necessarily in statistical terms, but simply using the scheme that he himself has created requires complete objectivity in applying it. You can say that the basic concept is great, and with Lichtman's keys, they do have a relatively high accuracy. But when you get to the point where you're like, well, I can't believe that this person will win, and so I'm going to bet against them, even though a more proper interpretation of my own system would give Trump the election, that's where he ran afoul. So that's the reason why Allan Lichtman right now has a lot of egg on his face. If you look at snippets from his live broadcast, it's pretty funny. Once he realized that, hey, oh shit, I'm not going to get this one, there was a notable change in demeanor around that time. Which makes sense. I mean, when your entire living comes from that one thing, just predicting presidential elections and shit, getting it wrong is probably pretty bad for your brand. That's why you should diversify your income, by the way. Nobody gets it right 100% of the time. I would say that my predictions came a lot more true than Lichtman's, though. Of the 48 states that I guessed, I got them all right. I left off Pennsylvania and Arizona, so I'll just take the L on those two, I suppose. there were people that got 50 out of 50. I figured that Maricopa exists. Pennsylvania's already warned us they might not get their election results in same night. So I said, well, I'm nervous about those 2 states, but I predicted Trump would win because he didn't need those 2 states if he won all the others that I correctly predicted he'd get, the swing states, Nevada, etc. I think I've, at the moment, got the Senate margin too. They've got 52 seats for the GOP. I think there's still a couple outstanding that could go either way. So it could be 53 or something like that. That would be within the same range. Also in the House, the Republicans have a net gain of 5 or 6, depending on the firm that you consult, which is roughly what I expected. It'll be, I think, a little bit higher than that in the end. They'll grab up another couple, but it stays in single digits. So mild gains. Nonetheless, though, and with the popular vote especially, this was a wipeout election. It wasn't a red wave in the electoral sense, in the sense of Congress, but they did win. Most people out there were not predicting that. Even there were some people that wanted Trump to win but got black-pilled. And what I said is the situation now is not the same as it was under lockdowns. And you've got a variety of other factors that are going to come into play, like the economy, for example. Biden can't blame, the higher unemployment or something like that. Oh, you lost jobs. Can't really do that. Kamala Harris couldn't use that excuse. Biden could. Of course, I do still think the 2020 election was fucked with, as I think looking at the data from this election becomes even more evident. But again, for what it's worth, Allan Lichtman is pouring salt right now. Like the Romanians are trying to import him in order to buff up their industry. One of the largest salt mines in the world, by the way, Romania. Most people don't know that. Anyway, you kind of got to feel sorry for the dude, because he was just so irascible, so grumpy about it too. Like anytime somebody would question the keys or his interpretation of the keys, no, you've got it wrong. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. He'd go off on them. Very, very angry old man, I suppose, applies to him now. And so yet another, I think this is the 3rd election he's gotten wrong in the time that he's been making these predictions. Don't let them fool you. He has actually gotten it wrong before. It's just that he copes afterwards. He'll probably do it again. That's about all. Peace out.